Are you ready? We rolling? Okay. I love my new shift dress, and looking through my closet, I can definitely use more dresses like this in my wardrobe. I have an idea. I think I want to use up my scrap fabrics. This boxy kind of loose shape will take really well to color blocking different fabrics together. Luckily, I did so much sewing recently that I have a lot of scrap fabrics. So I'm gonna dig through them and see what I can come up with. Oh, whoa, look at all these scraps I found. I think I want about 4 different colors. The dress isn't so big and I want big color blocks. I'm gonna start with my signature print, and then I'm just going to pick solids from there. You also want to make sure that they're the same fabric weight. So I have linen blends here, so I know that they will sew together. Won't use that one. I like the story that these colors are all bringing together. I think that's so fun and will work so well in this pattern. Now it has a rounded hemline, which I really like, but since I'm making it again, why not change out the hemline? So I'm actually gonna square it off, and then I'm just going to try sketching out some ideas on how I want to bring all of these fabrics and colors together. So let me grab my coloring tools and we can get sketching. I had so much fun sketching out all of my ideas. I could have probably sketched for hours, but I think I landed on this one because once I actually determined which scrap fabrics I wanted to use in my dress, I measured out how much I had so I knew how big my panels could be and if there were enough to cut a sleeve too. And I also sketched out the back. You could do a solid back panel if you had a lot of one fabric, or you always just keep on hand, you know, a classic black cotton or linen or a white or a neutral. But I wanted to get scrappy with the whole dress, so I sketched out the back too. Now what I need to do is actually grab my dress pattern, and I already have made the pattern, so I don't need to print it out again. I don't need to waste all that paper. I'm not even gonna use extra paper to trace out all these panels. I'm just gonna cut and draw those panel lines and then add seam allowance to my fabric. And if I wanna make it again, I just tape them all back up together. I wanna have as least paper waste in my studio as possible. So I'm starting with the front pattern here, and I always like to work right side up. So the right side of the fabric is up. And for my sketch right here, this entire half is going to be cut in my linen floral. So I know I can cut one in this total shape. So I'm actually gonna cut that first before I draw my lines and cut that out. I love this floral. I actually have a pair of overalls made in this too. So I'm gonna lay out my fabric, as I said, right side up, and place my dress pattern right side down because we want to mimic this sketch right here. I'm actually gonna try rotating it. It doesn't really matter as long as it's face down. Perfect. Now, since this pattern is actually meant to be cut on the fold, you can see in the original pattern design, when I add a seam, you have to add your seam allowance in order for the fit to remain the same. So I'm just going to pin down and then measure out my seam allowance and then cut around. In the beginning, I also wanted to try squaring off that hemline, so I can do that right here with my ruler. So I'm going to take my side seam and I am just going to extend it with my chalk and then connect it with my hemline. And I just want to match up the line of my clear gridded ruler to make sure I'm getting a nice 90-degree angle. So now I can unpin because I need the paper template for my other half of the dress. Looking at my sketch 2, I have an entire sleeve cut in this floral as well. So while I have it out, I'm gonna cut that too. Ta-da! So now that I have my entire sleeve and right front cut out, I need to draw these lines. Now, when replicating lines from your sketch to your pattern, you need to refer to what I like to call them are the landmarks to kind of get the ratio so you actually implement the correct proportions from your sketch to your pattern. So I just like to lay my sketch right next to my pattern. And I'm going to first draw in this section right here. Now I'm looking kind of at the underarm point. The sleeve is a little flouncy, so my underarm point is about right there. And now I'm gonna look at the kind of hem distance. It's about halfway would be here, and that's almost like a third from the underarm point. So that's kind of what I use to locate those. And to do things really quickly, what I do is I fold the pattern. I try to do the least amount of measuring as possible. So quick fold, crease, got my halfway point, then about a third, I'll just kind of do a quarter and then I'll go a little up from that. So this is my quarter. I'm gonna say like an inch up from there. That's gonna be my first line. So I'm going to position my ruler and I'm going to line it up so I have a nice 90-degree angle and draw my first panel line for this section right here. Now this is halfway through. So what I'm gonna do, just fold it, give it a little crease, and then that's the start of my panel. And it looks like it's dissecting right through the center of this. So it actually might not be a perfect 90-degree angle down from this section. So I'm gonna find the midpoint here and then connect them because it's, you see the side seam swings out a little bit. So this panel line might also have a little bit of a swing to it. So let me fold my hemline. Just gonna kind of touch the patterns together along there. Looks like my ruler isn't quite long enough, but that's okay. I just kind of draw in a little bit and then there we go. Yeah, it's on a little bit of an angle from here. So now I have my panel lines and you might want to use some extra tape if there's not tape on your pattern where these lines intersect. So when you cut them, they don't fall apart. Tape, please. You just hand me my tape. Thank you. So I'm just gonna tape over these. Now I'm gonna cut them apart. Now note, this is my paper rotary cutter. Don't use your fabric ones. I have my 3 sections. Now just before I completely separate this, I actually should have done it before I cut it. This piece has a grain line, this piece has our center front grain line. I just need to put my grain line on this. So I'm just gonna quickly measure a point from my center front inside my side panel piece. Let's do 7 inches. So we have that straight grain line reference. It's pretty similar to the panel line, but just to be safe. So this one, pink, black, and is that teal or turquoise? I'll just put tea. All right, I'm gonna cut them out. So I have already gone ahead and cut out my back because it's just in quarters. So all I did was slice my back dress piece in half. Again, I just folded it and then also squared off that hemline. So I cut right side up, right side down, and vice versa for the bottom. And then the sleeves are easy. I just cut 2 full sleeve pieces in my flowery linen and my fuchsia twill. So really excited to pin them all together. So let's start out with our front. I have all of my pieces in front of me. I have my full half and I have these sections right here. And what I like to do to reduce sewing time is I'm gonna pin everything together and then go to my sewing machine and just piece it and serge it and then press it. So I'm just going to not pin it all the way, just so I know what pieces go together, and it'll be a breeze at my sewing machine. So I like to lay everything right side up facing me so I know when things can go right sides together, because sometimes, especially with linen, you really can't tell the right side from the wrong side. So I would hate to sew it at the sewing machine the opposite way. So I'm going to first just pin these together. Just a couple pins, just so I know right sides together. Kind of one at the top and then one near the bottom. And then I'm gonna open it up. And then I'm gonna flip this down and pin this right sides together so I know where it is to be sewn. Just loosely pin. And then I'm going to open that back up and do this flip right sides together. Oh, this is looking just like our sketch. All right, so this is ready for my sewing machine. Let me just quickly pin my back pieces together and then we'll get sewing. I'm so excited to sew all these together. Just remember to stitch at the seam allowance amount that you added to your pieces. The pattern includes 1/2 inch, so that's what I did too. Also, if you're sewing with lots of linens and natural fabrics like I am, you want to get nice sharp and crisp edges, so crank that iron up to high as well. Let's go to the machine. So I have my front complete, but I have just a little bit of scrap fabric left, and I feel like I want a detail, a pocket or something. It's always good to have at least one pocket on a dress, especially. So I'm gonna add a little patch pocket and use decorative stitching to really tie in the floral design. I think that'll be really cute. I love my front piece together scrappy shift dress and my added pocket too. I love the addition of a nice decorative stitch. I went with the green to complement the other side and it goes in line, as well as the black fabric because it brings in the background of the floral. And I love the leaf print. We already have so much floral going on. I wanted to highlight it. Didn't want it to be too much, but there's tons of decorative stitches that you can choose from. You could even do an embroidery design. What I am thinking of also doing is maybe doing that decorative stitch along my panel lines too. So many options that you can elevate your panel lines. And this looks just like my sketch. Super happy with how it turned out. So now on to the back. It's very similar to the construction of the front. I just sew everything together, serge, and press. Now, as far as the sleeves go, what I like to do is first sew the shoulder seams together, and then I set in the sleeve and sew the sleeve seam and the side seam as one continuous seam. And then I also like to play around with bias tape because we have those black accents for our dress. I'm going to finish the neckline with pre-pressed bias. So after I stitch one shoulder seam, I'm gonna do the entire neckline in one, and then I'll sew together the other before the sleeves. And I'm thinking of even finishing our hem with the bias as well. I really want this dress to be long, so I'm thinking maybe I will bring that binding all the way down to the hem. There are just so many options you can choose from when paneling together your own scrappy shift dress. Decorative stitching, mixing prints and prints, just doing solids, even knits. This dress pattern will definitely work for knits since it doesn't have any darts or a zipper. You can just slip it on, so you can use up any little pieces of fabric that you have in your fabric stash and not even cutting into your brand new yardage of fabric. So print off the template, get sketching, and I can't wait to see everyone's scrappy shift dress. For links and resources to everything I used in this episode of Style Revive, head over to sewdaily.com or click the link in the description of this video to go right to the dedicated blog post. In there, you'll find all of my finishing photos as well as sewing steps on how to install the sleeves and binding. This has been Style Revive on Sew Daily Network. Hope you enjoy and get scrappy.